Oh, my dear friends, it is sad news I bring you today. West trying to disempower Muslim women. Simone Fox Koob writes for The Australian. The American founder of the world's most popular online magazine for Muslim women says Pauline Hanson's recent burqa stunt is symptomatic of Western democracies trying to disempower Muslim women and look at them in an inferior lens. The burqa stunt refers to Australian Senator Pauline Hanson wearing a full burqa into Parliament in hopes to convince fellow lawmakers to enact a law banning the burqa, most notably for security reasons. She was chastised by fellow lawmakers for offending the religious sensibilities of some Australians. A panel of global thinkers and writers gathered for last night's Melbourne Writers' Festival edition of Q&A, where a young high school student asked,
"Some Islamic nations, women are often deprived of basic human rights, such as driving a car, voting, or are even punished for exposing an ankle. In a world where women are often the guilty party to the crime of rape and must endure severe and inhumane punishment, aren't freedom and religion mutually exclusive?"
These are sensible questions, but watch how the Muslim apologist attempts to change the subject and put the blame of anti-woman issues in the Muslim world as a result of Western exceptionalism.
It's really interesting because I think that it's a byproduct of our own exceptionalism, the way that we choose to view other parts of the world and the issues that they're experiencing, and kind of absolving ourselves of our own issues, right? When I think about the way that people misrepresent the oppression of women in Muslim regions.
Many Muslim women show signs of Stockholm syndrome and want to protect their abusers. The classic tactic the abuser uses is to blame the victim. "You are oppressing me by pointing out the fact that I am oppressing you." Why this went unchallenged on this stage proves that it was populated by people with an agenda. And contrary to what they might call themselves, this agenda does not include the safety or well-being of women and children living under Sharia law.
You know, it definitely heavily comes down to the way that they're represented, and the way that we choose to discuss them is as if those issues don't exist within our own societies as well. For example, one of the biggest things that's always cited is honor killings. Honor killings are rampant. If you turn on the news, any type of program about Muslim women, you would assume that this is just a problem pervading the entire region.
Truth be told, I almost never see the subject of honor killings reported on not only mainstream news media, but even less so for alternative or independent news sources. The reason, I suspect, is due to the presumed shitstorm of protest and offense that would ensue, followed by fierce accusations of the invented mental condition known as Islamophobia. USA Today wrote about honor killings and is instructive. Honor killings are a form of extreme punishment exacted to regain family honor in the wake of what is considered a sexual crime, such as adultery or other sexual impropriety and homosexuality. The Justice Study identified 4 types of honor violence: forced marriage, honor-based domestic violence, female genital mutilation, and honor killings. Although they didn't mention honor rape, an honor killing is perceived by the perpetrator to be a way to restore honor to the family in the face of a perceived damage. The report says those responsible for committing the killings can be parents, husbands, siblings, or extended family members. I don't think most of us consider USA Today as some bastion of alt-right white nationalism. They do, however, take a shot on the numbers involved in honor killings. How common are honor killings and where do they occur? No one really knows. The most frequently quoted figure published by the United Nations in 2000 is an estimate of 5,000 killings worldwide each year, most of them in Islamic regions of South Asia, North Africa, and the Middle East. They go on to say that women make up 93% of the victims of honor killings. The United Nations has much to say on this subject. Most of the 5,000 honor killings reported to take place every year around the world do not make the news, nor do the other myriad forms of violence inflicted on women and girls by husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, uncles, and other male and sometimes even female family members. In the name of preserving family honor, women and girls are shot, stoned, burned, buried alive, strangled, smothered, and knifed to death with horrifying regularity. Listen next, how she attempts to blur the lines between honor killings and domestic abuse, not pointing out, of course, that abuse happens to both men and women. She tries to conflate cultures. why we see the deliberate murder known as honor killing as somehow different, as it actually is, to abuse, which at times is pre-planned, but more than often is a result of a complex and toxic relationship that ends in mental abuse, injury, or death. Not the systematic stifling of life because of actions that go against Islam or your religion. But that must be the result of colonialist patriarchy.
But then when you look at countries like Australia and like the United States, the top killer of women is domestic violence. But we choose to refer to it as domestic violence. We choose to speak about it like it's a social issue, and of course, often really disregard it. But then when it happens in other countries, it's an honor killing. It's disgusting, it's backwards, it's inhumane, right? And really what I'm speaking to is that this is all symptomatic of patriarchy.
So according to the CDC, the leading causes of death for females in the United States are heart disease and cancer. Together, nearly half of those deaths followed by mostly natural causes, with the exception of unintentional injuries that they refer to as accidents, coming in at around 4%.
So we really can't look to Muslim countries and say, you know, these issues are impacting them and whatnot, because by doing that, by extension, we immediately look at them in an inferior lens. And by doing that, that's how we in our countries disempower Muslim women around the world even further. We speak about them like we know what's best for them.
That's right. Someone points out the horrors that face young girls, women, and anyone that might be gay or transgender in a Muslim country. If they go against Islam, the best strategy is to blame the West for looking down on brutally repressive societies, as they should. Amnesty International, surely no safe space for neo-Nazis, has opinions regarding the barbaric treatment of women in Islamic regions. Every year around the world, an increasing number of women are reported killed in the name of honor. Relatives, usually male, commit acts of violence against wives, sisters, daughters, and mothers to reclaim their family honor from real or suspected actions that are perceived to have compromised it. Due to a range of factors, including discriminatory attitudes and beliefs about women, officials often condone or ignore the use of torture and brutality against women. As a result, the majority of so-called honor killings go unreported, and perpetrators face little, if any, consequence. Amnesty International appears to try to beat around the bush by bringing in tribal traditions, but they are forced to mention Sharia law and the lack of protections for victims of honor violence. Religious, social, and institutional justifications for honor killings. So-called honor crimes occur in societies in which there is interplay between discriminatory tribal traditions of justice and statutory law. In some countries, this is exacerbated by inclusion of Sharia or Islamic law or zina, sex outside of marriage, as a crime within statutory law. Due to women's enforced seclusion, submission to men, and second-class citizenship, women seldom know their rights under national or international law and barely have a chance to defend themselves in a court of law. This is Amnesty International we're talking about here, by the way. Local law enforcement officials often turn a blind eye or fail to enforce significant punishments for the murder of women. Police and members of the public may help the killer's family cover up the murder by refusing to register it as a crime, or by delaying long enough to allow the killer to escape the vicinity. In countries such as Jordan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, any form of immorality, whether adultery or rape, is considered a way of dishonoring the family and may lead to honor-related violence. Now, when they say adultery or rape, that means a woman committing adultery, or in this case, if she's raped, that's also committing adultery, and the victim is now the offender in Sharia. How, I asked this Muslim apologist, do we equate cultural, religious, and deliberate murder acted out on innocent people with random domestic violence? In truth, I agree, both are domestic violence, but the Islamic honor killing or rape variety is sanctioned by the family, the community, and often through laws within a country. Domestic violence anywhere in the world is deplorable, and the abuser should never be given a safe haven. In most civilized countries, these crimes are directly punishable by law and are highly prosecuted. There is no Western society that I am aware of, and please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, where planned murder and rape based on morality crime is universally accepted. Domestic abuse perpetrators are brought to justice. What percent of cases are brought to righteous conclusions? We may never know, since, as with honor killings, domestic abuse is underreported. But the key point isn't the reporting, but the acceptance of terrible crimes within a society. So yes, point the finger of blame at people who dare point out severe human rights violation and make it their colonial patriarchal mentality that is the problem. This crass bait and switch tactic does not work on reasonable people who feel that all people are entitled to the most basic human rights. So-called honor killings are part of a community mentality. Large sections of society share traditional conceptions of family honor and approve of honor killings to preserve that honor. Even mothers whose daughters have been killed in the name of honor often condone such violent acts. Such complicity by other women in the family and the community strengthens the concept of women as property without personal worth. In addition, communal acceptance of honor killings furthers the claim that violence in the name of honor is a private issue and one to be avoided by law enforcement. Community acceptance of these killings stifles accurate reporting of the number of violent crimes against women in the name of honor. As a result, the true extent of the prevalence of honor killings is still not fully known.
Well, I mean, the question was really about whether there's a serious discussion going on about what happens to Muslim women in countries like Saudi Arabia and the obvious inequities for them. And we just heard an argument about the burqa. I imagine a lot of women don't choose to wear the burqa but have to.
Look, I agree with everything you've just said. And look, my experience as a feminist who is white is that I am often told the other side of this story, is that when I try to make an argument about domestic violence, an argument about the fact that 1 in 5 women in their lifetimes will be raped, I am immediately told, mostly by men, well, why are you talking about this nonsense when you should be talking about what's happening to Muslim women far away, that we can only talk about sexism and misogyny and violence when it's being done in other countries far away.
Lori Penny agrees as a feminist who is white. What the hell does your skin color have to do with human rights? If Miss Penny was dark-skinned, would her answer be any different? Nobody says we can only talk about Muslim women far away. When it is the subject of universal human rights, those rights don't stop at the border. Let me give a simple example to a simple person, Lori Penny. I assume murder is still against the law in Britain, where she is from. Lori cannot simply cross a national border into another country and kill someone because she is no longer in Britain. Murder is still murder. Okay, I'm no law expert, but you don't have to be one to understand basic concepts. One of the other panelists, Michael Fullilove, does come to the aid of sanity and expresses this.
There's one other missing word, I think, and that's universal. And I think human rights are universal. And I don't disagree with what a lot of the panellists have said today, but I do disagree with one point, and that is that because we have frailties as a society, therefore we shouldn't be calling out human rights abuses abroad. The idea that because there's domestic violence in Australia, we shouldn't be calling out honour killings abroad. The idea that our society is so hopeless and frail that therefore it's cultural imperialism to tell other people how to live their lives. I don't believe in that. I think that there are a certain number of universal human rights. I'm not talking about telling women what they can wear and what they shouldn't wear.
Spot on, Michael, and I agree we shouldn't be telling women what they should and shouldn't wear. But we've been doing this song and dance routine with the third wave feminists and social justice warrior types for years. They are bending themselves into pretzels, trying to convince us that women living under Sharia law have a choice to wear what they want. This claim in and of itself qualifies the one making it as being declared legally insane or incredibly stupid. I want to quote from the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada's response to information and requests regarding the enforcement of dress codes in Iran. And by the way, links to all these sites that I'm quoting are in the description. According to the Islamic Penal Code of Iran, women who appear in public without a proper hijab should be imprisoned from 10 days to 2 months or pay a fine of 50,000 to 500,000 rial. The law is reportedly applicable to all Iranian women regardless of their religion. In practice, women are required to cover their hair and the contours of their body in public. Sources note that loose-fitting headscarves, tight overcoats, and short trousers that expose the skin are prohibited. It gives much more detail of the do's and don'ts. However, any fantasy that is left about women's freedom of choosing what to wear is dashed to the rocks here. According to Freedom House, It is the state's prerogative to monitor and control women's apparel in order to protect the honor of the nation's women. You see, Lori Penny, this is what people are talking about, not this all or nothing straw man that you and your type keep throwing out there. If you are concerned about the dreaded and hateful patriarchy, well then I've got some amazing candidates for you. The rights you and everyone else have on that stage and in your own country to express yourself in any manner that you choose, those special rights that countless people have fought and died for, does not exist for at least half the people in places where Sharia law is enforced. I say to you, Lori Penny, this fiction that Muslim women choose how they can dress, this is the emperor with no clothes. You remember that story, don't you? Well, it applies here. And I do recognize, and everyone recognizes, unless you're a simpleton, that if you're in civilized Western countries and you decide to dress how you want, there's no problem, because we don't enforce dress codes. Like Michael Fullove, I don't want to say there's no problem in the civilized parts of the world, but we have laws to protect everyone from harm. Do those laws help everyone? Well, no. There are still criminals walking free in Europe and America and other places, but we have systems that attempt to bring those perps to justice. It's not a perfect system simply because we are a people and not perfect, but we are light years ahead of places ruled by Sharia. Goodbye.